Right, if everyone's happy, just to let you know, I've started the recording of this training. Should we just give it one more minute or so and then we'll get going?
Yeah, we've got an influx of people joining, which is great.
Yeah.
I seasoned the lamb shank because I was my wife.
Great. Thanks for everyone who's been putting their name and where they're from in the chat. That's really helpful. Great. Well, there's a few more people joining in, but I think we might as well just get started with some introductions. My name is Kiara. I'm just going to briefly whittle through some intro of who we are, and then we'll get going with some of the key content. Then we'll be having some discussions at the end about what we've discussed. So we are Sparkborough Children's Zone. But going forward, we are going to be known as the Family Wellbeing Zone. So we're having a bit of a change in name, and this is to encompass the widening of our service, as we are no longer going to be wholly focused on Sparkbrook as our geographical area, or on children as our emphasised cohort. And if people can just put their mics on mute, that's really helpful. Thank you. But yeah, we are working to support both women and children to live happy and healthy lives. So our children's work is around preventing health inequalities for children and young people, and our women's work is to decrease infant mortality through focusing on preconception health. And so we are researching both of these two pieces of work to improve the impact of what we're doing and our effectiveness. So those are our three strands of the Family Wellbeing Zone, which is what Sparkborough Children's Zone is about to be. And then we are working on this training with Adult and the Youth Service. So Adult, if you're happy, just quickly introduce a bit about your work.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name's Adil Hadi. I'm the Youth Service Manager for Birmingham Youth Service around the issue around health inequalities. So myself, I manage the health inequalities team. And within that, under that umbrella, we have 3 projects. Project Pulse, which is a public health funded project, which really kind of works around reducing the obesity of young people. Year 6, particularly year 6, because I see that as a key area, and also a number of other factors, including things like physical activity outside of the school setting, as well as providing training for youth workers and practitioners, and supporting young people into specialist services. And another key area as well that we're focusing on as well is the Boulder Health Champions as well. So this is an area where it's exciting, where we get young people involved in championing health issues, understanding what's out there and how they can use their influences as young people to kind of really hit home some of the messages to other young people around pertinent health issues that are affecting them. One more area we're working on as well, which is around the umbrella contract, which is reducing STIs and unwanted pregnancies, things like condom distribution, group work training for staff, and also training for young people, support for young people, as well as testing for those that need testing as well. So we do like test and returns. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Adil. So we're going to start by just looking at what is the current situation of screens in this training. So many of you may recognize this device on the left of the screen, the Nokia Brick in 2005. So we've seen a lot of changes in the last 2 decades, from having had the Nokia Brick to now having widespread use of smartphones and the internet for all ages and stages, it feels. And we've got a couple stats just to hit this home, really. So 1 in 3 children aged 6 to 7 already have their own smartphone. 9 years old is the average age a child gets a smartphone in the UK, and 90% of 12-year-olds have a smartphone. So these statistics are quite staggering and clearly very young. Lots of people are being very young with smartphones and on the internet. And there's a lot of dangers to this, which we'll go through, and a lot of issues. But there also, to start with, are a lot of really good things. to smartphones and the internet. And so we've experienced that they've reduced barriers for learning, like open universities, things like that. They support social connection. We all felt that through COVID. And they can also open up remote working and training. Right now, we're using screens and the internet to utilize it for good. But there has been extensive research that we're going to go through around the impacts and effects of excessive screen time for children's health and well-being. And yeah, that's really important considering how young these statistics show children are getting screens at the moment. So I'm going to pass over to Dr. Chris Bird, who's going to tell us about some of the health implications.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm my sort of day and sort of evening night job is consultant in paediatric emergency medicine at Birmingham Children's Hospital. And I was also involved with Chiara, Simajit and Adil in developing our Sparkbrook Children's Zone sort of community sort of health clinic for kids. I think the first thing I should say, I'm absolutely not an expert. I'm sort of really speaking to you from someone who's tried to go through the evidence for what effect smartphone use has on child health and child development, just because I see such an impact on my clinical work on a daily basis. I think you also sort of theme as I go through the few slides that I've got here, that I'll often sort of say, well, we don't quite yet have the evidence to prove consistently sort of one way or the other, because it is early days. And I think, as Chiara's just mentioned, I mean, the speed with which these things have been adopted is incredibly fast, and it takes time to really understand sometimes the impact that these things have. But I think it's interesting with the groundswell of families worrying about smartphone use that we're about to follow Australia in terms of sort of banning social media for the under 16s, and we'll sort of wait to see exactly how that's sort of managed. But I think all of us in this meeting can I think it would be fair to say, have misgivings and concerns about the impact that smartphones and social media have on our young people's on our children's lives. And the graph there on the left, so I work in an emergency department. This is data from the United States, which shows the level of the number of children coming into emergency departments. I think it's in dark blue if I can see the screen correctly on the bottom. And as you can see, over the years, that hasn't really changed that much. But the yellow line, you can see quite a steep rise in mental health and self-harm presentations to US emergency departments. And the interesting thing about that is, if you look at the dates as to when that starts rising, that is very sort of shortly after the smartphone is introduced. And I certainly see it's a standard thing on our questionnaires for young people who sadly come in with a mental health crisis or who have self-harmed, is we always now know to ask about smartphone use, and, for example, bullying or grooming or whatever the sort of negative sides of smartphones that have very real impact on young people's mental health. Next slide, please. So there's quite a few health implications. I think a very, very important implication is for sort of effect is on speech and language. And I think we have got some early strong evidence to say that early smartphone use in sort of very young children, in toddlers, and I have to say I kind of slightly wince when I see children in buggies with a little stand to have a phone on it. That worries me, and the graphs there on the right show this was a study done by Japanese researchers in about 7,000 infants who they followed on through to their sort of toddlerhood. And you can see there that with the increasing amount of time on a smartphone or some kind of screen or digital media, the more difficulty they have with communication and also with problem solving. And this was replicated in another study done in, I think it was Denmark, which showed quite sort of challenging communication issues, a delay in developing language skills in young children. And I think my colleague Simajit is going to talk a little bit more about it. But I think with the very sensible government advice that's come out recently that no child under 2 should really have any exposure to smartphones or digital media, and that they should be very careful. Parents or carers being with a child when they're slightly older, when they are looking at digital media, just to so that very important interaction continues in terms of which is so important for language learning. Next slide, please. Very difficult with neurodevelopmental issues. I would say that we really don't have, from my reading, and again, as I say, I've a health warning in terms of my expertise, but from what I've read, in terms of autism, it's very difficult to say. We don't really know what effect screen use has on children with autism. Yes, I don't think. Because the problem here is that researchers kind of think, well, perhaps that there's certain traits for young people and children with autism that make them sort of very attracted to screen use and use of screens, and that perhaps they were sort of more predisposed to this kind of technology sort of anyway. And there's this sort of what researchers call reverse causality, so that actually that the perhaps that these children with autism are perhaps wired in some way that they are sort of very they sort of do sort of they click very well with screens, and I think they're sort of we're waiting to sort of see what to really unpick the relationship between screen use and autism. However, I think there is stronger evidence that screen use can exacerbate or worsen symptoms of ADHD, and there's a big something called a meta-analysis, and that's just a sort of posh way of saying that researchers gather all of the available papers that they think are relevant to a certain issue and sort of add all those studies together. And I think that we can see that there's good evidence that screens can make ADHD symptoms, particularly problematic screen use, worse, including issues around sleep disruption, reduced social interaction, and difficulties with attention. Next slide, please. Obesity, there is good evidence that with increased screen use, that this is associated with obesity, and that would seem to be kind of fairly logical, because if you're sitting if you're sitting down or curled up in bed and just looking at your screen, and you're not outside kicking a ball around or running around with your mates, it would make sense that you're not burning off calories, and that this would lead to obesity. And certainly they found studies that increased to any screen use of 2 hours or more a day. And again, I think Simajit is going to talk about some sort of fairly shocking figures about how many hours our kids are actually on their phones, is associated with an increased risk of obesity. Next slide. And I'm sure all of us who have families have this an ongoing conversation in terms of the phone, where the smartphone is in our lives, and how is it impacting on the social and emotional development of our children. Development it's incredibly important, that sort of face-to-face interaction, shared attention, and all that kind of. It doesn't seem like the child's doing any work sort of repeating the word doggy like 20 times or playing peekaboo or whatever, but these are incredibly important stages in all that incredibly complex and amazing development of the child brain. And including sort of conversation, taking turns in conversation, or sitting with a parent or carer with a book, going over, discussing the pictures that they see. And this is missing when a child is on their own in front of a phone. And I think the issues that we will have to kind of, and there's a lot of discussion in my own family about what what behavior that parents or carers are modeling themselves in terms of our own screen use. Think about the amount of time we spend on our phones. And the researchers have a name for this, technoference, whereby sort of parents are kind of, them staring into their screens is getting in the way of that very important parental or carer response to child and the development of child behavior. Next slide, sorry. And then, of course, sleep. There is good evidence that social media, and particularly smartphone use, interferes with sleep, and particularly problematic smartphone use. And I have to say, my own experience is I remember young people coming into the Sparkbrook Clinic with sleep issues, and I learned early on to ask about smartphone use, because when the chips are down, if a child is on their phones scrolling till 2 a.m, well, it's no surprise that they're not going to have a great day at school the next day, or have much energy to interact. So I think it's very sort of very important to limit smartphone use, particularly at night, and also to sort of keep it sort of well away from the bedroom. And actually, now that we're on sleep, I'm going to hand over to Adil, who has a project around that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris. That was really, really very, very useful to look at it from a research perspective. I mean, for us as a youth service, and I've got my other colleagues on here as well, that could also contribute and chip in as well if they feel like they want to, Stuart and Kieran. So one of the things that we do as part of our objective is to kind of focus on the correlation between sleep and screen. So we work with a lot of young people between the age of 10 to 18, and we've been delivering workshops across the city, across local youth service provisions, and one of the ones that we've been focusing on is sleep and screen. And as you can see, in the image there, that was one that was delivered at Concord Youth Centre with a group of young men, focusing on understanding the quality of sleep, how it impacts your mental health, recognising that screen time can affect your quality of sleep, and sleep is connected to everything else around recovery, around regeneration, around in terms of feeling active and feeling connected to what's going on. So we looked at with young people to explore their habits and trying to gain a better understanding of how sleep affects their mood and impacts on their day. So on this, as you can see on this, we asked a number of questions, and some of those questions were how well do I understand how well do I understand the importance of quality of sleep? Because we wanted young people to understand how do you value and how do you value sleep, and that was important because young people think, oh, now the later they stay up, the better. It's almost like a badge of honor. I stayed up till 4 a.m, or I stayed up till 6 a.m, and actually trying to get young people to think about that the importance of sleep. Also, we asked the questions: how likely are you to use screens before bed? We also asked how likely are you to read a book before you go to bed, and how well do you understand the relationship between your mood and sleep, and how likely are you to drink an energy drink or some kind of caffeinated drink before in the evening. And obviously we did a pre and post. So as you can see from the questions, clearly question one, and actually the young people after the conversation, and I think we do it in a very explorative way with young people. It's about young people challenging other young people, as well as us providing the platform for them to kind of think differently, think outside of the box, and create a steer for young people to understand the importance of sleep. So obviously with question one, it was clear that young people after the workshop really understood the importance of sleep and the impact that it had on them. And I think the third one was, I think it was around how likely to read a book before you go to bed. Actually, they did just the fact that we reminded them about alternative things that they could do instead of being on a screen, which was really, really positive. So, and then finally, I think one of the other ones was the relationship between mood and sleep. And actually, young people started to explore. Actually, I wonder why I wake up in the morning all grumpy, and we kept saying to people, if you had a good night's sleep, if you had a fulfilled sleep, the likely is you're going to probably feel a lot better. You're going to be in a better mood. So, but it's really hitting it home with young people on a very kind of informal basis, really. So, getting young people to really think about sleep and screen and the importance of screen. So, on to the next slide. I think we did a case study we did with a young person called Jay. So, and I think this is on one of the workshops that we did, and that we noticed that this young person wasn't getting the right level of sleep. And for the sake of the, we're going to call him Jay. That's not his real name. We knew that he lacked a certain routine in his life. He was low in physical activity, didn't really engage in any physical activity. And also, one of the other things that he was pointed out by his parents was around this lack of social interaction. When he came to us, as he came to the workshop, his parents mentioned to the youth worker that actually, he doesn't really connect with young people. Yeah, and he had a low awareness of the impact of what screen was about. So some of the sort of things that we did, we kind of delivered a person-centered, gradual change approach. So we looked at him as a young person, what was going on, what was surrounding him, not just the issue, but actually the wider issues, determinants, to help him kind of think differently around what he could be doing differently to help himself, really. So we got him to build a rapport with other young people. We set kind of a few goals for him. We introduced him to alternative things as well, which is crucial, really, because I think a lot of the time it's important that we offer young people an alternative. So we got him involved in kind of, first and foremost, we got him involved in kind of like board games, which was kind of connecting with other young people. So where he had to physically play with other people, as well as then moving on to kind of more team-based stuff. So that kind of left a positive reinforcement. And over the weeks, you can see, a gradual change in his wanting and his wantingness to come back, to be involved, that connection, that built that social connection that was there. It was like, yeah, I want to go back and see X, and want to see Y. Yeah, I had a really good time with them. And his parent was really excited, came back to us and said, you know what, I'm so glad that we brought him here. And actually, it's really beginning to come out of his shell a little bit more now. And he's beginning to, so we had stronger, peer relationships and a more balanced routine, really. So the learning from that was really kind of, it was important that we try and get young people to think about screen time and how that impacts them, and get them to start to think about some of the solutions. And we, as youth workers and practitioners, we're there to kind of help that journey, help young people with that journey. Thank you. That's it. Thanks, Chiara.
Great. And Simoji, are you happy to take over for the next section around the wider implications?
Hi everyone, my name's Simoji. I'm Programme Manager for Sparkbrook Children's Zone, so working with Chris, Chiara and Adil and the wider youth service on this training. It's really great to see so many people join. We had 140 individuals register for this training, which really does show that there is such a need for professionals, parent carers to engage in this kind of work. And Chris, thank you for taking us through the health implications. And Adil, it's really always wonderful to see what the youth service is doing to support young people. Now, I think what Chris has done is talked a lot about the health implications, and lots of research has happened around age 0 to 5. Now, that's not to say that the impact stops there, that after you're 5, you're fine, you can go on the screen for as long as you like. Really bringing in the youth services to show the young people that are going, teenagers that are around now, are the ones that were born in the 2010s. They were the ones that were accessing screens more than any of us prior to that. So I want to talk about the wider impacts here. So we're talking about exposure of harmful content. Sorry guys, are you able to put yourself on mute? Thank you. So I'm just going to talk about some of the research that shows the wider impact on well-being. Now, we know that with increased unsupervised and unlimited access to screen time, that is really where some of the biggest issues come in. We know that the more time that young person or child spends on the screen, it increases their exposure to harmful content. Now, harmful content can include being sent explicit images, access to pornography, and even seeing acts of violence. We know that there has been a widespread viewing of things like ISIS beheading and even the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk in the UK. Now, this kind of content is becoming more and more normalised for young people. And the problem is, once it's seen, it's not unseen. And we don't really know the long-term impacts that has when the child sees these types of images on their growth and their development going forward. We also know that there are wider impacts around poor mental health. Now, there's a lot in the news at the moment about access to social media. We could spend hours talking about the impacts of social media, the harmful algorithms that are created from platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and many others. But the study that we're focused on today is looking at the impact of general gaming and general internet use, as well as social media. So we can see that there are definitely going to be many of you in this call today that are interested in social media. So we're going to continue our collaboration with the youth service, and hopefully we can do a deep dive into that later on in the year. But for now, I want to talk about problematic screen time usage. So this is where there's patterns of behaviour that are often linked to resemble addiction. And that's the feeling of being panicked or upset when the phone isn't available, finding it difficult to control the amount of time spent on a phone, using the phone longer without feeling satisfied, and using the phone at the detriment of other meaningful activities. Now, as an adult, I know that that's sometimes my behaviour, but imagine if you're a young person or a child, just how that addictive behaviour could feel even worse. Now, there is studies that show that there's a link between the amount of time spent on the phone and the chances of developing depression. Now, in girls, in this study, we found that for girls that were spending 5 hours a day on their phone equated to about 40% chance of developing clinical depression. Now, we're not saying that phones is the only cause for poor mental health, of course we're not, but many academic studies see there is a rise here and there aren't many credible alternatives. And so the correlation is really hard to ignore. So now we're looking at school attainment. Now, there's lots of news reports at the moment about the amount of young people that are NEET. Now, there is studies that show that children that at the age of 4 and 5 that were not meeting their developmental milestones were almost 3 times as likely to not be in education, employment, or training by the age of 17. So we can really see that there are long-term impacts on development. So if a child is spending too much time on their screen, Chris has already taken us through the impact that it has on their development. So if those children have a lack of development at age 4 and 5, they're moving through school and then they're not able to be in education, employment, and training. It's really sad to see. Now, a separate study by the Policy Exchange, what they did was really interesting. They submitted freedom of information requests to 800 primary schools and secondary schools across the UK, and they were interested in 2 things. One, they were interested in understanding what the true state of a phone ban is in that school, and whether there was a link between school performance and the school's mobile phone policy. Now, in this study, they were looking at an effective ban, which includes the phone not being permitted on school grounds, the phone being collected and removed from the pupil at the start of a day, and pupils being required to place their phone in a locker or a similar like zip bag or something at the start of each day. What was really interesting is that they found that those schools with an effective phone ban were twice as likely to be rated outstanding by Ofsted. And they also found that children that attended those schools achieved 1 to 2 grades higher in their GCSEs compared to schools with laxer policies. Now, this was despite the fact that the schools with an effective phone ban had a higher proportion of pupils who were eligible for free school meals. I think that it really does show, and I know we've got lots of schools, primary and secondary, joining today, and what we're saying is, we know it's hard, all of this is difficult, and later on Chiara will take us through a bit of information about how to support you with that. And finally, I'm going to be looking at the decrease in real life experiences. So we know that when there's a smartphone, children do spend less time with real friends. Now, there was a large-scale study that found that children are spending less time face-to-face with their friends since the 1970s. However, in 2010, after smartphones became more of an everyday use, that decrease in real life experience significantly dropped. Now, I know that probably this is not much of a surprise, especially when children have friends online. There's an increase in entertainment available online. But if children and young people are spending less and less time in a 2D world, of course, all the things that we've heard today about early years development, increase in sedentary lifestyle, poor mental health, access to harmful content, disruptions in sleep. It's no wonder that there's such a concern from all of us today. And also, how does this impact on when you're online, you're in a bubble, your algorithm is created for you. So how is this impacting a child or young person and even adults' ability to debate, create ideas, have critical thinking? So we are concerned about the much wider impacts here. And I'm going to hand back now to the youth service to talk about some of the work that they're doing and the youth service is doing to support young people.
Yeah, thank you, Simajit. I do have some colleagues on as well that can come on and jump on as well. So Stuart, if you're available, you can always jump in and say something. But I'll start for a bit, and then maybe if you can, Stuart, you can talk about some of the stuff that you guys have been doing as part of the team. So what we know, what we understand is that as a youth service, and what we do as a youth service is important to kind of promote the kind of we know that it helps promote healthy digital habits, gets young people to understand technology, the restrictions, things like in the past we've done things like getting young people to understand where the source of their information is coming from, source verification. So what they're seeing and what they're reading and what they're understanding on the screens is legitimate. That's one of the areas that we have worked on, but also alongside that is around the time and the amount of time spent on there. We try to, as a youth service, we try to say to young people, keep your phones. I know in one centre that we work in, there's a rule that actually, your phones need to be put away whilst engaging in activity in either workshops or either any form of activity as well. So we try and encourage young people to stay off their phones. We limit the amount of time that young people actually spend on their phones. If a young person is spending time on a phone, we'll probably come to them and say, right, come on, let's get involved in this. Did you know they were doing this? There's art stuff going on over here. And so our youth workers are quite good at just kind of discouraging young people to stay on their phones and engaging with other young people and kind of creating those connections. Also youth workers encourage young people to reflect on their screen use. So getting young people to think about the time they spend on there is really important. And developing other skills as well, social skills are really important. Negotiation skills, conflict resolution skills. Often or not, what we realize is when young people are just stuck in a zone, they are not exposed to other experiences and other opportunities that will help them learn and develop. So I think as a youth service, I think we know, and even as organisations that work with young people, this is some advice and support for you guys in terms of how you can think about how you set programs or deliver workshops around this particular area as well. So we're here to kind of offer that support to help support other organisations understand some of the challenges as well. One of the things that we've always done for many years is provides alternative opportunities for young people, supporting, creating opportunities, so supporting opportunities, creative opportunities, volunteering, social opportunities to meet and connect with other young people. We know in the past that we've done residentials where 9 times out of 10, when we're taking young people to a residential in the middle of the forest somewhere, there's no reception, so it's like, oh damn. So it's like they have no choice but to connect with one another. So I think that's always been a handy tool as well. When when you're in the sticks somewhere and you're in a log cabin somewhere with 12 kids and 3 youth workers, and we're going to be doing canoeing and doing something quite exciting and some outdoor activities, then it's always kind of they're having to work together, they're having to connect with each other. So those are the kind of things that we have done or can encourage people to do as well. but also we've got to try to get young people to think about if they are on the screen, what is it that they're looking at, and just trying to maintain a healthy balance. You know, how much time should there be on there, and just say, you know, even asking people how much when you go home, how much time do you spend on your, you know, on your phone or on your, and you know, and does your parents say anything to you? So we try and get them to think about making informed choices, right choices about their sort of use of the screen online as well. And I want to put Stuart. Are you available to talk about some of your stuff, Stuart?
Yes, Adil. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm here.
brilliant! Thank you. Put yourself
Thank
on.
you, Adil. Hello, everyone. I'm Stuart Oddy. Yeah, so just as a bit of a springboard, like from the work that Adil was talking about earlier, where our workers, like they go out to like centres and they deliver education and workshop around sleep and like screen time. I manage like a project which is called like Bolder, Healthier Champions. This project is all about empowering and giving young people like a real voice and giving them the information and the skills like that they go out into their like communities, be it school, be it like youth settings, like community settings, or football teams, a variety, and they like disseminate positive health messages so that young people can improve their outcomes. This is all kind of like peer-led, co-produced like material. So it has like real quality, like an agency. Leading on like from the sessions like that we were facilitating in the sessions, they became like a real apparent issue around sleep, which then led to a piece of work like where the young people approached like the university like over at Birmingham, like around further like research, and it was cited like there wasn't too much modern research into kind of sleep and screen time and the effects. So the young people have put together a questionnaire, 100 other young people from our centres, like they filled it out. And the results like were really kind of insightful, basically saying like 95% of young people had been like using smartphones and other like devices prior to going to bed. 98% of young people like that took the questionnaire cited poor sleep quality, struggling to get to sleep, constantly having to get up in the middle of the night, checking out their phones to see if one of their friends like had been in touch. Real issues around sleep. So this led to the groups kind of undertaking further kind of training around the issues to kind of produce quite impactful but simple art and messaging that they could like distribute to their kind of peers around more kind of healthier bedtime routines, instead of picking up a book, instead of going like on the games console or scrolling through TikTok, which obviously had like psychological like stimulation. So then, you know, when they were trying to get to sleep, if they'd been playing like Grand Theft Auto for an hour, young people like were saying like they'd close their eyes and they'd still see like police cars like whizzing past their eyes when they're trying to sleep. So which obviously has real issues when you're trying to like relax. So the young people came up with lots of different kind of strap lines and different angles to come at, which had a real impact, because we found like that young people will tend to listen to older young people perhaps than they would to like a member of staff. So yeah, we found like a real like quality in actually skilling up our older young people and getting them to like distribute and disseminate these kind of positive like messages around sleep hygiene, like strategies, and you know, like not going on your phone like an hour before you're trying to go to bed, like reading a book as an alternative, kind of like avoiding energy drinks, alcohol, or kind of caffeine. As Adil spoke about earlier, actually being more kind of like physically active like during the day, so you're tired, setting more positive and balanced sleep like routines. So all those things really, like, and this is something that we're kind of continuing like to build on, as obviously sleep and screen time are, you know, are very closely like linked. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, that's if any. Yeah, I don't know if you want to go into questions, Kiara, or is that for later? Or
Yeah, great. should we just quickly go to the next slide? And
Okay.
we've got a couple things that we'd now love to chat about. So we're gonna kick off with a poll. So we'd love to hear like everyone's thoughts. So with the issues mentioned today, which are you most concerned about? So I'm about to put a poll up for that. And then after that, we're going to do some breakout rooms with the next question. So let me just launch this. So it's a, I think it's called a word cloud poll. So hopefully everyone can see this. So can everyone see this poll up on the screen? Great. So we've obviously gone through lots of different issues. We've had Chris chatting to us about some of the key health concerns with screens. We've had Simajit chatting about some wider, particularly around mental health concerns. And we've obviously had Adil and Stuart chat about some of the things they've been doing within the youth service to support this. So it'd be just great to hear like what are some things that people are most stuck out to them. So you've got lots of things coming through. I don't know if other people can everyone see the different things coming through? So we've got mental health, social media, developmental, graphic content, screen use, early years, social skills, social media, young people. I think there's quite a big emphasis on mental health, which it seems like that's the main thing people are commenting on, which totally makes sense. And there's also obviously everything links into mental health, everything that Chris talks about, even though it feels more directly health related, it is all ties into mental health. Yeah, anxiety, speech and language. Yeah, really, really interesting seeing the amount. Oh yeah. So mental health is one that's getting all the key time. Okay, cool. Really interesting to see all these things coming through. And it's really interesting when everyone's sending through the same concerns, same things, isn't it? So to chat a little bit more about this, I'm going to pop everyone into breakout rooms. So let me just whack the slide up again. Has the slides come off for everyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'll put them in let me put the questions in the chat.
Do you want me to do it? I've got them ready.
Oh yeah, you put it in the chat, and so we're going to go through these two questions. So we're going to say, what is your setting doing to manage screen time usage? And then also, what further support do you need to manage screen time usage? So those are the two questions we're going to go through in the breakout rooms. We're going to have about, let's go to 11. We're going to go through these two questions, and we're going to have Simajit, Chris, and myself will all be facilitating a room. And if everyone can contribute, it's just really helpful to hear what different people are going through, what you're experiencing, and how we can think together around how we can support this. No one has the direct answer, and also everyone's settings will look different. But I think this is a really important issue to work together on and figure out the best solutions. So let me just assign everyone's participants quickly. Great. Is this moving everyone to their rooms? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone should be getting moved back into the main meeting. Realise these
There wasn't enough
breakout
time.
rooms we're
There's
almost
never
like
enough.
There's
whole
never
enough
meeting
time, is there?
themselves, there's so many people.
I mean,
Right.
the idea, we do want to engage in everybody, but there's just never enough time, isn't it? Is there?
Yeah, I think next time we'll have smaller groups and then everyone can chat a bit more. I think that might be everyone back in. I'd love it if we could just have some people telling us their thoughts on things, particularly around I wonder if there's any people we had some really great discussions in the group I was in around some issues that are going on, how it's affecting children, the conversations with parents, and it's hard. It's really a tough time, I think, to be particularly being teachers, to be honest. I think you've got a lot on your hands to work with. And I'd love to hear if there's anyone who feels that they have some things that are working well. Like, what are some ways that we can be sharing and supporting each other with? What some things your settings are doing to manage screen time that feel like it's being well received would be really great to hear about. If anyone wants to just
We've
jump
got
in.
William's got
Oh.
his hand up.
Yeah, go
I'd
for
also
it.
like to. I don't know if Marcia is still on the call, but I'd like to volunteer Marcia in terms of her interventions at the 2-year check. I thought that was very interesting.
Right, let's
Or
have
everyone's
William and then
everyone's
Marcia.
interventions are very interesting. But yeah.
Hi there, I'm Will Shakespeare. I'm Early Help Coordinator in Birmingham Children's Trust. So my previous role, I was a lead practitioner doing Section 17 assessments. But one thing that came up quite a lot with families is internet safety and use. One website I used to use an awful lot, which you guys probably already know about, was internetmatters.org. And I would then discuss with parents about, what are the things that you're struggling with. Have you looked at this particular website? There's some really good information on there about parental controls. What internet provider are you with? Okay, for example, I know one provider has really good apps that help you to monitor what exactly has been used. You can use different filters and those kind of things. So I found that quite useful, which I'll put a link into the chat so for people to use. I was going to share it in our group earlier, but suddenly the group ended. So I'll put it in the chat. Okay.
Thanks, Will, that's great.
Great. Marcia, you've been selected by Chris. Would you like to share what you were talking about?
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Chris. But I'm sure there's quite a few people that do work in the family hubs and do the development checks. So, but yeah, we do the 2-year development checks. And sometimes we can, when the parents come and the children have got language delays and things like that, or they've come in with a laptop or a phone and things like that. It's about what we say to the parents about screen time and things like that, about what delays could happen. And after hearing what you guys were saying earlier, it's given me more information to feed back to the parents about how these delays can affect their schooling and their learning and in the future. So I think that's going to be a really, really good point for me to take back and inform the parents. It's about informing the parents now rather than when they get to 5 and 6, because we're getting them at 2. In fact, one of the things that's definitely come out of here is to knock it on the head straight away before they even get to 2. But a lot of the parents have already started it, but it's not too late to get out of it as well, to stop it.
Absolutely. It's all about early intervention, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And even
Absolutely.
teenagers, it doesn't mean that they're a lost cause. Absolutely not. We can see in the youth service, there's some really great strategies that have been put in place. I just wonder whether in my group, I should quickly just add in what we had a variety of different age groups in terms of professionals age groups that they're supporting. There was a really interesting link between a professional that's working in a special school and then our early years colleagues, where there is a ban in school or in earlier settings that obviously children don't don't go in with any phones or devices. But it's so when they're at school or in that setting, they're engaging and they're participating. However, when they go home, the impact that the parents have and boundaries that may or may not be in place, and then the effect that that has in terms of the child's development, everything they're learning in setting, but then the impact they have on sleep, and then coming into the setting on school the next day tired and falling asleep in class. And in our clinics, and in early help, where the area that I work in, we hear that a lot, where children are falling asleep in class, and we can safely assume that that is often related to the child's access to, again, unlimited, unsupervised screen time. It was really great to hear from the youth service again, so talking about alternative activities. And actually, if you say to a young person, this is what we've got going on, you need to get rid of your phone for this session, it's really only effective where that young person trusts you and wants to work with you, and they've got a good relationship with that setting, which is brilliant, and obviously takes time to build up. And then finally, it was the link between all of this, so everything we're talking about around screen time, mental health, and energy drinks. And now I think we all know that energy drinks is a problem, but if young people are using energy drinks to keep themselves awake, to be online and present themselves in that way, the wider impact that it has when they're drinking 3 energy drinks is to stay awake till 6 a.m. So that was something that we heard in that group as well. Stuart, I know you had your hand up before, so I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah. I was just going to talk about like alternatives to kind of being on screens, and that's where, like, in our youth centres, we do like a great job at actually like creating real kind of innovative things they can do, like games and sports and opportunities. So just actually giving opportunities where they will happily put the phone down to do something that's good and fun, and they can have like a laugh doing it. I was also going to talk about as well using kind of like humor and having a bit of a joke, like to challenge those kind of like behaviors, is a real like effective like mechanism. Like we've had like situations where like I'll be trying to play a game of like table tennis, and the young person's holding like their phone and their bat in the same hand while trying to play a game. So it's about kind of challenging that, your hands like are much more useful without a phone in them, but doing it in a humorous way so it doesn't feel like you're patronising or having a go at them. Just think, they're really like important like strategies.
I think that's just to jump in. I think that's actually a really good point. I think, to be honest, speaking as I grew up in the smartphone era, and as soon as it becomes like quite a big deal, it's quite annoying. Like, it's not annoying, sorry. I think I would just relate well to just emphasising that point of when it doesn't need to be this thing where you're suddenly getting told off, but actually, and I know this can look actually really different in settings. It's really different having this in a youth service versus school, and there can be different boundaries around what works there, and you'll work out what works well for your setting. But actually, like, enjoying just having someone say, "Come on, like, there's more things to do outside of your phone. Like, let's have fun." I think it's just a really good point. Suzanne, you've got your hand up.
It was just 2 things really. The main reason as well is that a lot of parents don't realise the impact it has on the children's eyes as well when they're little.
Yeah.
It's it can have a big impact on their eyes. And just going back to, obviously, you've spoken to Marcy this morning. We work alongside Marcy in the Family Hub, but my main role is delivering little talker sessions for the parents. So I've seen a lot of children who come through the door, obviously, are due to screen time and lack of parenting. It's had a massive impact on their speech and language skills.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. It's almost, but it's kind of, in a way, 2 years is fantastic because that's very early, but it's almost kind of not. And I think, Marcia, you kind of said that anyway. It's kind of not early enough, and you kind of wonder that I don't know if parents still get the kind of bag of goodies or whatever delivery at hospital and stuff like that, but somewhere in there's a message needs to, this messaging, this information around smartphones and language development really needs to come from day naught.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're out and about, you see so many parents in a restaurant and they're eating away and the child's got the iPad or the phone in front of them and there's no conversation going on between the family. Very sad, really. Thank you.
I saw a question in the chat around alternative activities for low-income families. I can't see the whole of the because I've got the screens, but I wonder whether there's anyone's got any thoughts on low-income family alternative provisions, because that's something we've sort of chatted about a bit within our team. Of actually, that it's really hard sometimes for families when things look a little bit more complicated, and the screen can provide a bit of a bit of relief, a bit of space. But does anyone have any like good solutions to alternative activities that feel like they worked actually really well with families that they're working with around alternatives to screens?
Simoji, I just noticed put in the chat, bring it on, Brum, with the activities over school holidays and things.
Yeah, definitely. Has anyone else got any things that they think have worked well?
I just want to add, like as a parent, myself, took me time to learn what apps were working well and the cheaper ones, and I pay for 2 apps that they didn't do nothing, and then I find out that Google Family we can do that for free, but again is about knowledge to learn how to monitoring, how to have your knowledge in the app and see how to monitor your kids. Sometimes is tricky. I think we couldn't just blame the parents.
About the stepping stones tomorrow.
Yes, just check in with
Sorry, guys, if we could just if you're not speaking, we could just keep the things on mute if that's okay. Also, just want to point out that Sandra in our room points out a really interesting thing, going back to your point, Chiara, about not being nagged about smartphones and things, in terms of and Sandra, if I got it correctly, at your youth group, you don't ban phones or anything. It's a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually, Simoji, would you be able to, in terms of access to, because I've always, as you know, I've a steep learning curve for me in terms of what's available in the community and things, but in terms of accessing activities for families on low incomes, what's the sort of best route in for that?
Yeah, so Bring It On Brum is where there's a fund that is paid for by central government and it comes through to the city, and they're all local provision, and every school within the city will have a code for their for children who are on free school meals, or children who have SEND needs, and even children who may not be on free school meals but would benefit from the provision. Now, we totally get it. We've always got families that have got lots of children, don't have a car, lots of stuff going on, and the thought of going to a local provision sounds like it's not possible or not available to that family, but they absolutely are. You know, they're the children's centre or the family hubs down the road, they're the local school, they're on the doorstep. And Bring It On Brum, if you put in your Birmingham postcode, now it doesn't even have to be a home address, it could be that the children are staying with a relative and they're in Birmingham, they can put the postcode in to where they are, and then it gives you a whole list of what's available. And then the families book on and the children go there, they have a great day, they get food, they have really fun activities, and the parents go home and they can do all the other stuff that they do while the children's safe and having a good time. So Bring It On Brum is as good as it gets as far as I'm aware in Birmingham. I know that's limited, but it's as good as we've got, and I would encourage everybody here, if you've got young people, children who are on free school meals who are eligible, to go on to Bring It On Brum, because holiday activities are expensive and the summer is long, so it is a really great one. And Sandra, it's really great to hear your experience as a parent, and I'm really grateful for you to share that and to come on today. I'm mindful that we're probably running out of time a bit now, which time flies. So Chiara, do you want to? You've got the slides, haven't you?
Great. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. Is my thing echoing?
Right, try now.
Okay, yeah, great. So we're just going to go through the last 3 slides. So we're just going to think about what's being done nationally. So there's been a lot of coverage recently around online safety and screens for children and young people. Many of you, I'm sure, will have heard that the Prime Minister Keir Starmer recently announced that social media will be banned for under 16s. The Department for Education has recently released some guidance for screen time usage for children aged 0 to 5. So just a quick overview of what this guidance is. They say that under 2 should avoid screen time entirely. 2 to 5 should have no more than 1 hour a day and avoid screens at meal times and an hour before bedtime. The content that is used for them should be slow paced and age appropriate, and they should avoid fast-paced social media style videos and particularly AI for children who are really young. And also a big thing they encourage is that parents and caregivers and children co-view things together. So there's something really important about not just sending your child off to watch TV on their own or being their screen, but actually doing it together. Like talk about what you're watching, ask questions, engage with whether it's Bluey or whatever the favorite TV show is at the time, engaging in those shows together rather than having children do it on their own in an isolated environment. And then the third thing being done nationally is I'm sure many of you may have heard of the smartphone free childhood movement. And this is a community of parents who have made it their mission to provide solidarity and support and solutions for parents who, arguably are dealing with one of the biggest defining parenting challenges of this era. And they're working really hard to push the government for more support in the battle to reclaim childhood from big techs and algorithms and all things like that. And so also when we send the links through, there'll be all the links to these things on the slides. And then we've got a call to action. So obviously we've gone through so much content today, had loads of really great discussions and talked through these things. And sometimes you can be left with saying, what do I do? What do I do? So we've got 3 things that we'd love you to do. So we would encourage you to promote the Smartphone Free Childhood Parent Pact. So they create, so you'll be able to get the link to this thing when we send the slides through later today. But they talk all around how they have different WhatsApp groups in different areas of the country and around different schools and things like that, where you can say, I'm not going to give my child a phone until this age. And it basically helps reduce the peer pressure of feeling like everyone's having everyone else's kids are getting given phones, and what do I do? Do I need to give my child a phone? Don't feel ready to yet, I'm not sure. It helps provide solidarity and bring together parents who want to delay giving their child a phone. So that's a really great thing to get involved with and see. And as I said, I'll send you through the link after. The second thing is that the Department for Education is enacting a smartphone ban in schools. So have a look at this guidance, and there's also some really helpful case studies. So looking at whether your setting has a smartphone policy and could you follow suit. And then the third thing is that the Department for Education are asking people to submit evidence on the effects of screen time, and this is going to inform their new parent guidance for screen use for children aged 5 to 16. So as I said on the previous slide, they've just done it for their 0 to 5s, and they're in the process of creating their guidance for the 5 to 16. So if you can submit evidence, then that really helps them with what decisions they make. All of these things, I'm aware you don't have the links for yet. So I will, when we send through the slides later today, I'll pin them all as well, and they're also linked into this, but I'll send them all separately through to you too. Yeah, I was going to put them on now, but actually we probably don't quite have time to be going through all of them. And then the final thing is that we'd love for you to give us some feedback. We've never done one of these training sessions before, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. What's been helpful? What can we do better? So there's a QR code here. There's also some questions specifically for if you're from Birmingham Youth Service. So some things will say if applicable. So Birmingham Youth Service people, that's for you. But if everyone's able to scan this QR code now and just give us some feedback, that's just really helpful to make sure that we make the most of everyone's time when we do these sessions, really. So I'll get, and then there's also some information for if you want to contact us, chat about anything, please do. We'd love to hear from you. So yeah, everyone, if you can give us some feedback now, that'd be great, and then we'll wrap up. And also, if anyone's got any questions whilst people are doing their feedback, if anyone's got any questions, please do just come off mute and
I just
fire
thought, I
away.
mean, Kiara as well. I mean, also just like to say the breakout room was really interesting, and we had covered lots of really tricky issues. It's also really given that you know, I've talked a little bit about how we kind of lack quite a lot of evidence and stuff, but how people are really weighing in to try and tackle, you know, to tackle this issue. But I think also there's a thing in the chat there from Laura about the, you know, the huge difficulties that families face given the sort of lack of safe space and etc. So yeah, but very impressed with what everyone you know, with what everyone's doing. It's maybe think a lot about what I need to try and take back to the emergency department.
That's actually a great point also to note. I guess it can feel really hard hitting when we're suddenly giving so much information around the awful things that screens can create, but also I guess as we're wrapping up, just to recognise, we also see that everyone's trying to do their best with working out what works in their own settings, and it's really tough issue to navigate. So
yeah, I feel like Rajvinder's made a really good point, and it's not something we ignore, like family breakdown, domestic abuse, criminal activity, financial instability. Like, you know, when families are dealing with all of that, and then we're talking about smartphone usage, and it can feel like it's at the bottom of the parents' list. But I guess what we're trying to do, this is a discussion, we don't know the answers, but if excessive, unsupervised, unlimited screen time makes things worse, then as professionals working with families, just helping families to understand that and finding alternatives will make things easier. But as someone that works in early help and loads of family support, DSLs, etc. on this call, we know that this isn't easy. And we absolutely need to all work together just to try and find that opportunity, even if it's just a small opportunity, to make things easier for families.
And can I just add as well, if there's anything that any organisations want any support with developing alternative kind of ideas and opportunities for young people, please feel free just to contact us as well. We're available to support. One more thing I wanted to mention on a lighter note was I don't know if anyone's seen Toy Story 5.
Watched it on Friday.
It was, I just had to mention that. I think it was really good to notice that there's this kind of battle between young kids playing toys and the digital world. And actually, I thought it was really, really good. And it was actually a really powerful message for my children as well, that actually social connection is far more important than, you know, connecting with somebody online through chat groups and stuff like that. Yeah, so, but that was just my final note. Thank you.
I like ending with Toy Story 5 for sure, Adele. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the best way to end a training session. Right, well, if everyone's done their QR code, William Shakespeare.
Hello, it's me again. Just on a positive note, positive note and a personal note, my youngest, he's 10. We went to go to visit family. My wife said, "Oh, do you want to take your Switch with you to keep you entertained?" He went, "Well, no, because I'm going around their house and we need to be sociable."
What a legend.
And like, my wife was like, "Whoa, he's got a point." And she said what was really lovely was seeing him and his cousin actually just playing and being kids on a Friday night, having a water fight, being in the tent, and the only time they watched a screen was probably towards the end. They wanted to watch a film together. And she said that I missed that. And it really kind of, I don't know, quite emotional to hear that. So yeah, there you go. Positive note.
Yeah, that's really good. Love that. Love a water fight too.
Love a water fight. Perfect weather for it too.
Yeah, we'll get around there and have one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
The alternative activity of
yeah, when people are emailing you, say have a water fight. So if anyone's got any questions, please do jump in, but if not, you're free to go. Thank you so much for having joined us. I'll end the recording now as well, and I'll send it through to everyone later on.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you guys, take care, have a good day.
Thanks so much everyone, take care,
enjoy the weather.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
thank you.